What's going on, guys? Evan here, bringing you another Dark Souls Xbox 360 gameplay commentary. This is going to be part 8 in the Elly installment series, where I outline this character's development starting at the introductory soul level for her particular class of cleric, and taking her all the way to soul level 125, and all the way through New Game. And I don't think I'll show any gameplay from New Game Plus, but I'll show pretty much everything of significance. I'm just going to cut out the farming and walkthroughs of areas that are self-explanatory, you know. Basically, it's just going to be like a really, really long and elaborate highlights clip. It's very similar to a Let's Play, only it's post-commentary, and it doesn't cover everything ever, like a Let's Play would. It's definitely not a walkthrough. It's just sort of a how I approach the game, why I do the things that I do, and in what order, because Elly doesn't actually follow traditional order through the game. With that said, the gameplay in the background during this video is going to be the first couple things this character ever forged. In addition to, it's going to be showing how to ascend your pyromancy's flame in Blighttown, which I would have attached to the pyromancy video, which was part 7, but I just couldn't. Nope. Too long. It was really too long, and I didn't want to process anything that long. Uploading my, like, 1 hour plus Blighttown commentary is just a nightmare, and hope to never have to do anything like that again. So I'm going to try to break these videos down into smaller segments. As a result, it actually makes them less enjoyable to upload, because I have to tag them and everything like that, and But that said, it's how we're doing it now. The commentary may not particularly reflect the gameplay in the background, but that's okay, because it's just showing people how to upgrade their pyromancy's flame and ascend it and all that good stuff. And I have to try to show everything of significance in this character, so sometimes it's got to include videos that, you know, aren't necessarily the most exciting ones. They might be going through old areas, but I feel like they're important to include. Like I said, I try to show everything of significance. That said, the big topic we're going to talk about for the next 20-ish minutes is going to be upgrading, you know, how it works in this game, how reinforcement works, how you make your crap better, the kind of upgrades that, you know, basically upgrading 101. We'll just go with that. Upgrading equipment 101. And since there's actually a lot to talk about, it's not complicated, but if you don't have any experience with it, it can appear complicated. So with that said, I'm just going to jump right into it. The basics of smithing. Smithing requires a blacksmith to actually upgrade the equipment, and or a smith box, which is like a smith that you take on the move with you to use at bonfires, which every character ever should purchase. And you need to pay the cost of the actual upgrade, which is souls and materials. Because to upgrade any item in the game, you need an investment of souls and materials. Because everything in Dark Souls takes souls, and this just has the added necessity of materials. So those are your basics, and I'll talk about the corresponding materials for each upgrade later. But in the time being, we're going to move on to the different blacksmiths in the game. There are 4 blacksmiths in Dark Souls. They are Andre, Vamos, Rickert, and the Giant Blacksmith. Those are not their full names or their surnames, that's just the quick version. And Andre is the blacksmith I'm talking to right now in game. He's the blacksmith most characters will encounter immediately. He's located in the old church between the Undead Parish and the Darkroot Garden. Pretty hard to miss, considering you have to go to Sin's Fortress to reach Anor Londo, and he's on the way to Sin's Fortress, so everyone's going to pass him at least once. And just a little random piece of trivia, if you actually hostile him, he will tear you up, because he's pretty strong. I mean, of course, any character can beat him, but he's pretty strong. In terms of upgrading equipment and ascending equipment, which I'll elaborate more on later, Andre is responsible for normal upgrades, the normal upgrade path rather, the raw upgrade path, the divine upgrade path, and the occult upgrade path. Vamos, who's in the catacombs off of the skeletal graveyard from the Firelink Shrine, he is responsible for fire and chaos weapon upgrade paths. Rickert, I believe is his name, he's in the New Londo ruins, right down from the elevator, easy to find. He is responsible for magic and enchanted. And the final blacksmith, the Giant Blacksmith, he is responsible for crystal, lightning, and demon. And demon is sort of a special case. Demon is items made from a demon's soul. So, like, if you want to use the soul of the Moonlight Butterfly to make the crystal ring shield, you have to go to the Giant Blacksmith and provide him with the necessary item to upgrade that soul. And any vendor can do dragon weapons. We require dragon scales and that's pretty much that. So, I guess we'll elaborate on the actual upgrading process. The video in-game here is about to cut back to Firelink Shrine when I start the trek into Blighttown, so that's where you're going to get that sudden... Yep, there we go, back to Firelink Shrine. I guess we'll talk about this starting with Embers, because it's important to grasp Embers. All the different upgrade paths I mentioned with particular vendors, outside of the normal stuff, which is like 0 to +5, like the introductory to the game upgrades you can do, you need Embers to further your enhancements. So like, to do divine weapons, you need a divine Ember. To do larger divine weapons, you need large divine Embers. So, this is true with all of them, outside of specific paths. So like, normal's the easiest to understand, so we'll start there. Normal items start at 0, and they go up to +5 without an Ember required. Once you get the very large Ember and take it to Andre, he can take weapons up to +10. And once you take him the even larger Ember, which I don't know the name, it's large Ember, then very large Ember. Once you take him the very large Ember, he can take things all the way up to +15, which is where it maxes out. And the materials required for each branch of upgrades changes as you go. There's also branching paths that create specific types of weapons and stuff like that. Your character, using a smith box, can never take a weapon onto a particular path. It always requires a blacksmith with the appropriate Ember to ascend something. Once you give the blacksmith the Ember, he can do those things forever. It's not like he's limited to one item. The Ember never goes away. It never gets consumed by the blacksmith. He has it for life. So, if I want to take my bandit's dagger, which is actually a very good item by the way, and take it to +15, the way to do it is I have to get the large Ember and the very large Ember. And with those two together, I can, you know, upgrade my bandit to +15. Now I don't have to do the whole process at Andre though, that's the trick. So if I can take it to +5 on myself with a smithing box, but smithing boxes won't let you ascend things. On the upgrade menu you saw modify and upgrade. Modify is just another word for ascension. When you're modifying something, you're ascending the weapon. So we take it to +5, now we have to take it to very large status, so we ascend it. Once it's ascended to +6, I don't need Andre anymore. He's not ascending it anymore. Now I can just upgrade it all with him, or, you know, just out of my smith box at a bonfire, all the way up to +10. So we take it to +10, and once again we've reached the max of the large upgrade paths. Now we need to go to very large, and once again go back to Andre. He ascends it to +11, and then I can do all the way up to +15 by myself if I have the souls and the materials to do so. And all the upgrades work in that fashion. The ascension level always has to be done by the actual smith. Alright. The materials needed for each vary. I don't really think a commentary is appropriate to outline an exhaustive list of all the different materials and how many you need, but they get progressively rarer the item gets. Some of them are damn near finite in their existence. For example, to take something from +14 to +15, it requires a tantanite slab. There's only 2 tantanite slabs in the entire game of Dark Souls that you can get via boss drops or via quest. The rest is only, well, it can really only be acquired from a very, very rare drop from a very particular enemy in the game. It is respawning, it's not completely finite, but you have to have a lot of patience to get it done, is probably the easiest way to describe it. So, certain things you only plan on having so many things for. That said, if you want to do a branching path, like you don't want to do normal upgrades, which many players won't, you'll need to branch off into a divine or fire weapon at the appropriate blacksmith. So, to do divine, for example, you need a divine Ember, and then, and this is also with Andre, of course, because he handles divine weapons, which is what I'm using now. You upgrade the weapon to +5, and then that is when the weapon branches off into divine, provided you have the divine Ember. So you go to ascend equipment, just like you would have with the very large Ember, only you select divine, and it works in much the same way. And you can go up to +5 divine. To get up to +10 divine, you need a very large divine Ember. And they really all work the same. You know, fire weapons, chaos weapons, elemental weapons, it's all the same process. Lightning, on the other hand, is kind of particular. You have to take a weapon to +10, and then you can ascend the weapon to lightning. Lightning ascension doesn't start until +10, which is just a little different. Lightning is probably the most popular ascension for all weapons because it's universal, all-purpose, and it doesn't sort of force your character into particular builds, and it lets for a vitality gouge. I guess I'll elaborate on that now since I've covered the basics of upgrading. When I talk about ascension, this relates back to weapon scaling, which is another big element of Dark Souls I don't think people really understand, or they think they understand it, but they don't. Weapons get stronger with particular stats, and I just don't mean pumping strength to increase your character strength, make weapons strong, like, "Rah, crush, Elly, crush!" No, it doesn't really work like that. For example, daggers. Daggers don't get any stronger with strength. They scale off of dexterity. When I say scale, it means they gain damage proportional to the attribute. So, a bandit's dagger will gain a couple points of damage for every point in dexterity. The amount of scaling varies, and it's in a letter grade system from S being the highest to E being the lowest. So, if it's S, weapons get significantly stronger with an attribute. And these attribute bonuses actually have diminishing returns. Like, once I put 50 points into dexterity, and my weapons getting beastly damage from the dexterity modifier, dexterity starts to slow it down. This is because the predecessor to this game, Demon Souls, people kind of min-maxed their character, got their highest minimum and highest maximum damage by putting, like, you know, every character kind of became stereotypical in a way where you had 40 points into vitality, 40 into endurance, and you pumped a stat. That's kind of how Dark Souls is too, but Dark Souls has a little more room for innovation. I'm not going to get into a big conversation about that right now, but just understand that you don't need to go to 99 intelligence on your magic weapon, because magic scales off of intelligence. There's really no need, because once you get past 50, gains per point become really, really marginalized. That's why most characters don't bother. They'd rather invest in vitality or something more significant. And I'll do another video later where I talk about breakpoints on attributes and stats, and that might be the next video to this. And I think that's another really important basics of Dark Souls to understand is breakpoints. But whatever, we'll continue with our smithing because there's still more to talk about. So divine weapons, which is what Elly uses. Elly is a faith caster. She casts faith magic quite a bit. Divine means your weapon will scale off of your faith. You know, pretty cool thing. I like it. So, to make a divine, don't make a weapon divine unless you're going to pump faith. There's really no point. That's how that works. And magic scales with intelligence, and enchanted also scales with intelligence, but they don't all scale the same way. For example, enchanted, I believe, now this could be wrong, don't quote me on this, because I've never actually done a magic weapon on this game, but enchanted increases the scaling on intelligence on a weapon to S, which is the highest, so pumping intelligence makes the weapon's power go way up. A magic weapon, on the other hand, doesn't work quite the same way, because these aren't just free, you give other things up. For example, when you do enchanted, the scaling, you don't get a free S on intelligence, you lose the scaling on the other attributes. So if a weapon previously scales B and B on strength and dexterity, which would be pretty common weapons that scale on strength and dex at a B rating, once you enchant it, those drop off and it just scales S on intelligence. So you have to put a lot into intelligence to justify giving up the B and B on strength and dexterity. It's for specialization, really. That's the whole premise behind Ascension, is scaling your weapon to your character build. What's your attribute you're going to pump? What kind of weapon are you going to upgrade to fit that? Now, of course, at the same time, it's important to remember you have to balance this with other considerations, like you're putting all those points into intelligence, but can't put them somewhere else. That's why things like fire, lightning, and chaos are so popular in this game. I'll elaborate on those right now. Elemental things such as fire, and chaos, and lightning, they add exactly the same. They add that kind of damage to the weapon, and they don't scale off attributes at all. Doesn't matter what attributes you have, they will not increase the damage. The flip side is it removes all attribute scaling from the weapon if it was previously there. So if my weapon was, once again, B strength, B dexterity, once I make it lightning, it'll get, say, plus 500 damage from having the lightning damage on it. but it's not going to get any higher off the base damage from anything else. So at that point it becomes purely elemental damage. And that's actually a lot better, because the balance in this game is a little wonky, I think, and that's just my personal opinion, but like, if I make a magic weapon, rather, even if I make an enchanted weapon, so I have S scaling on intelligence, and I put 50 points in intelligence, the weapon will actually hit harder than a lightning weapon, but only by 50 to 100 points. And I had to give up those attribute points I might have put somewhere else. So it's really important that, you know, if you're going to do scaling on a weapon, that you want that attribute for other things. Otherwise you'd be better off just by gouging elemental weapons, because those are points you probably pulled away from vitality, which is always a great attribute to gouge out, because life is just so important, and endurance is nice to raise too, to have heavier armor, stuff like that. I could get really verbose about all these topics and make this like a 5 commentary series, but I don't think that's necessary. I think I've been clear about what I'm talking about. If I'm not, please in the comments say what you need me to elaborate on, and I'll respond, or I'll do another video response, something like that. But that's the premise behind the upgrade system in Dark Souls. I'll talk a little bit about some specific things. Whereas Divine caters to Faith, Occult also caters to Faith. Magic and Enchanted, you know, they go to Intelligence somewhat. Raw weapons are pretty much useless in that they don't scale worth crap, but raw stuff, I think it's like a higher damage temporarily. I don't know. I don't use raw. I don't know a whole lot about it, I'm sorry. I've looked it up on the wiki and it just looks so bad. My advice is never be raw. Maybe I'm talking on my butt, but I would just stay away from raw. Fire, Chaos, and Lightning, they don't scale to an attribute, they're their own thing. Now for Dexterity and Strength just scale up. The normal upgrade path, which is like all the way to plus 15. The normal upgrade path is actually where you can get your most damage on things. Because, you know, let's say you get B and B scaling once again on Strength and Dexterity, and then you upgrade to plus 15. You still get B and B scaling on both of those attributes. Nothing's taking anything away from them. Okay, that's pretty cool, right? Alright, so I'm also getting upgraded just base damage from the upgrades I already did. And the real beauty of this trick is, once you enchant something as Divine or Lightning, you can no longer enchant it with like Gold Pine Resin, or like the items that add damage to your weapon, like Gold Pine Resin add lightning to your damage, stuff like that. There's spells that buff your items too. And some of them don't require huge investment in skills, like Faith, for example, does Dark Moonblade, which is an extremely powerful buff that scales damage with your Faith. Now, Divine already scales to your Faith, but it doesn't really, you know, it'll increase the weapon's damage, and it's great for regular stuff, but if you're just trying to get, like, the highest possible damage on your weapon, it usually comes from the combination of an attribute plus a spell plus a really strong item. So, if I have, say, a plus 15 sword that's getting S, B, and B scaling on stats, and the plus 15 has already increased its base damage. So its base damage is already up from the regular upgrade path. It's still getting the same scaling, and then I gouge Faith. Then I enchant my weapon with Dark Moonblade, which adds like 3.1 damage for each point in Faith.
Are you prepared to do this?
So now I have the Faith scaling combined with the basic upgraded damage plus the attribute scaling. That's a monster of a weapon, guys. That's how you get your highest damage. But it comes with reliance on buffs at that point. So that's just something to consider. That's sort of the closing thought of this video. Is what kind of weapon do you want? You know, are you making tons of points of vitality? Are you spreading your points all over? If you're spreading your points all over, you need to do an element. If you're gouging vitality, you need to do an element. If you want to rely on weapon buffs, you need to do normal. If you want to rely on Faith Gouge, do Divine or Occult. That's just how the game works. It's how the game's played. It's how Demon Souls played. And this game's much the same way. There's just too information to cover to put all in commentaries, or if I did, it would become such a clustered presentation. This one's already pretty clustered, so it just get even more clustered. So hit up a wiki if you want to learn more, if you're confused. But that's sort of just getting you into the game and how it works. So you can plan your character ahead. That's the big point of this commentary, is not to sort of give you an outline on how to upgrade, but just to have you think about when you're designing your characters, what do I want to do? Do I want to be really like points everywhere character and rely on an element, or do I want to be really focused where I can take a specific upgrade path and make it work for me? And that's, I know, I guess that's the big point of the commentary. I'd like to thank everyone for sticking with me for this 20 minutes. I tried to keep it as coherent as possible, but I feel like I got a little convoluted in there, and I apologize for that, but I think it's good enough I don't have to do a second take. If you have any questions, hit them in the comments. Alright guys, thanks for watching, and everyone have a great holiday.